Hey guys, today we're taking a look at every single MVP, Axiom, and Streamline putter in the entire lineup. And that is an absolute mountain of discs that I have right here. I am really excited to throw these guys. We're gonna be doing overviews of the flights and comparing all the stabilities. We're gonna be comparing the hand feel and the actual dimensions of the disc. And at the very end, I'm gonna give my personal ranking of the discs from least favorite to favorite. But before we get started, there's a couple ground rules for how I actually determined which discs to look at. Number one is that these are discs speed 3 or lower. These are like the true putters in the lineup. And number two is that we're only looking at discs that have current full production runs, which means I'm not looking at discs that are out of production or discontinued. I'm sorry, particle fans. But it's been like 3 years, so I hope you found a replacement by now. But if you haven't, this is a great video for you. That also means that discs like the Parachute, which technically exists but haven't actually had like full production runs yet, are also not being looked at today. So that leaves us with 14 discs. So before we actually get to throwing these guys, let's just take a look at the roster. First, we have the Neutron Soft Glitch, the Total Eclipse Pitch, R2 Neutron Nomad, Neutron Ohm, Neutron Pilot, Electron Pixel. This one's an Electron because it doesn't come in a premium plastic. The Neutron Watt, R2 Neutron Anode, R2 Neutron Ion, R2 Neutron Spin, the Proton Atom, the Proton Envy, the Fission Proxy, and the Neutron Stabilizer. Now, all of these discs are pretty much max weight outside of the Pitch and the Glitch, which are 152 and 157 grams respectively, as well as the Proxy, which is 170 grams. So let's hit the field and get started with our flight overviews. All right, guys, here we are in the field with our putters. As you can see, there's a basket out there that is 250 feet away. That's mostly just a visual aid for you guys to kind of judge the distance these putters are going. We're gonna start with the 1 speeds, work our way up to the 3 speeds, and go in alphabetical order within the speeds, starting with the Glitch. Glitch is awesome. I mean, obviously this was one of the most hyped releases of the past couple years. At first, I thought this was just kind of like a marketing gimmick. I didn't really take it seriously, but I have totally flipped to the other side. The Glitch and the Pitch are crucial discs for me. I throw the Pitch in particular literally every single round. I feel like these things are way more torque resistant than people give them credit for. I like the Pitch more because to me, the Glitch has that kind of bead at the bottom, just the hand feel. That's really the main difference between these two is hand feel. The flights are very similar. I just prefer the Pitch more. I feel like it has kind of that more frisbee feel. And for so many of my really straight up shots where either I have to throw softly or I really have to be careful about having fade, I'm reaching for the Pitch a ton. You do have to kind of get it high in the air to like get that full flight, but if you have that airspace, this is one that I'm reaching for all the time. This is one that really surprised me when I picked it up back when it came out this year. Cannot recommend the Pitch enough. But you might like the Glitch more, really comes down to personal preference. Next we go over to the Nomad. So this is our first 2-speed. The Nomad is surprisingly overstable. Not like significantly overstable, not as much as like an Envy, but just that fade at the end shocked me. This is a putter that I hadn't really used before just prepping for this video. Prepping for this video, I'd done work with all these putters for a couple weeks before just to get a good idea of the flights. And this is one that is definitely on the more overstable side of the spectrum, which makes some sense. It has that 1.5 fade, much like the Ion, a little bit more than something like the Atom. But really, I feel like this is a ton of overlap with the Atom. I'm kind of surprised they released this one because MVP has a ton of just like straight putters in their lineup. Not my favorite, has that kind of pronounced bead at the bottom. But you know, it's James Conrad's putter. Eagle uses this one, I believe, is his putting putter right now. So obviously there's, you know, some high profile players that love this disc. Not really the disc for me. Now, the disc for me is the Ohm. Wow, do I love the Ohm. The Ohm has a pretty moderate hand feel where it's not too deep, not too shallow, kind of just middle ground. Laser beam straight. You know, you can see that about a lot of MVP putters. They have a lot in this kind of straight category, but this one has the glide and just the fact that I can put it on a slight hyzer, it'll push, get up just a little bit to flat, but then fade. Just love the flight. This is one that I hadn't really played much with before prepping for this video. Absolutely fell in love with it. One of my favorites in the lineup holds line so well. The Watt is a very comparable pick to this one. The Watt is just a little more understable than this disc. Both very similar hand feels, really like them both, but the Ohm is my favorite of the two. Next we have our first Streamline edition, and that's the Pilot. Now, the Pilot is a great disc. This is one that is very, very popular because of that really straight flight, but also the torque resistance. I was actually surprised by the stability. It does have a little bit of bite at the end. It's just straight with the fade. It's a lot like the Atom, a lot like the Nomad. This one, again, is that very kind of moderate middle ground hand feel. I can see why this one's really popular, even though it's not my favorite. Also, you guys are gonna see that I'm very wet for a lot of these throws. It was like raining off and on. It's been raining for like a week straight here in Columbia, Missouri. It's been horrific. Harmony Bends is literally under like 5 feet of water right now. So I couldn't film when it was nice out. It was just, didn't have the opportunity. So this could also be a great commercial for like some chalk bags, because the chalk came in very clutch. Now we get to the Pixel. Now the Pixel's a strange case because it's the only Electron disc that we're testing today, and that's just because they don't make premium plastic Pixels. I kind of wish they did. I'm really curious to get my hands on one when they do, if they do eventually release them in a premium plastic, but I love these. They beat in pretty fast. This is in the medium Electron, where, you know, I feel like these premium plastic discs hold their stability a lot more. This one, you're gonna get a more understable flight pretty quickly just because the nature, especially if you're putting with it, it's hitting the chains a lot. I do putt with these. I love these. I've been bagging these since they came out. Fantastic disc. I don't do a lot of approaches with them. I'll do like shorter approaches, just like really slight turnovers. Now we have the Watt. Now I mentioned the Watt when I talked about the Ohm. They're like brother-sister type molds in that they're very similar hand feel. The Watt is just super straight. It's often talked about as like the max weight glitch because it has that really floaty straight flight, really fantastic. A little more understable than the Ohm. I prefer the Ohm over the two, but I totally get why people love this guy. For me, it doesn't replace the glitcher of the pitch, even though it's called the max weight glitch, just because this will still fade if you don't give it enough spin, enough power. I like that the glitch in the pitch, you can just throw it with just like a hand flick and you're not gonna get fade. This one you have to power up a little more on, which makes sense. It's max weight, it's just a different mold, but you know, for those really straight approaches where you want a ton of glide, the Watt is a fantastic choice. Now we're moving up to the 2.5 speeds. Now this is where things get a little weird. These are kind of some of their older putters. They have a very kind of like old school feel, more traditional, more I would call like AVR-like. Very similar depth to the AVR in that they're much deeper than a lot of MVP's putters. I feel like MVP's specialty is those shallower hand feel putters, and these guys just have that classic kind of retro feel. So if you're more into that, you're gonna really resonate with the anode, the ion, and the spin. The anode is the straightest of the 2.5 speeds. Has a little more overstability than I thought it would, at least out of the box it does. But again, you throw this guy straight, you're gonna get straight flight, a little bit of fade. It's hard to go wrong with these. You know, this is one that I would definitely consider putting with more than throwing because of that depth and because I prefer the shallower discs for throwing, but for putting, this one is definitely in contention for me actually. And then we have the ion, the older brother of the anode. It's basically just an anode that's more overstable. It has that 1.5 fade and it's noticeable. This was definitely on the more overstable side of the spectrum, but it's great for holding that hyzer line. You're not going to get that flip up. The anode, the ion, and the spin, you know, you can carry each one and get kind of different styles of approach shots and get kind of similar hand feels. So kind of cool if you're into that. The spin though, this disc is one of my favorites. I was shocked by this disc. This is the only mold in MVP's putter lineup that is truly understable out of the box. This guy gets a ton of turn. Very, very unique hand feel, especially because the parting line is so low on these guys. It almost has that kind of paradox feel where the shoulder just kind of bends way down towards the parting line. Yeah, again, it has that deeper hand feel, but I just love the understability out of the box. You don't gotta beat this guy in at all. Very controllable understable flight. Yeah, really surprised. One of my favorites. Fantastic. You can see it there. Yeah, I mean, that guy, you could easily roll these if you want to on that backhand. Now we're moving up to the 3 speeds of the world. Probably MVP's most popular category is that 3-speed, the Envy, the Proxy, the Atom. They all share that kind of same core. The Atom I have a lot of history with. It was actually one of my very first discs ever, was a Cosmic Electron Atom when I first started playing disc golf in 2020, back before MVP was cool. I was rocking that Atom. And I hadn't really thrown an Atom much since then, and I got this one in premium plastic. It's definitely more overstable than I remember it being. It's closer to an Envy than it is to a Proxy for me, where it still has that bite at the end. If you keep it a little high in there, you get those flex lines with it still. You can see here on some Anheuser, flexes out beautifully. I mean, you can get it if you hit this hard and flat, you get that really straight flight, which I think a lot of people are gonna like. For me, I just prefer the Proxy and the Envy. Atom doesn't really have a place in my bag, but I see why people would be throwing it. Just really straight disc. And now we have the Envy. I mean, what can I say about the Envy that hasn't already been said? It's one of the most popular discs of all time, especially following James Conrad's Holy Shot. They're pretty darn overstable, especially these Proton ones out of the box. You're gonna get straight flight with an aggressive fade at the end. Extremely torque resistant. You can throw this on the forehand. You can throw it into a headwind. I mean, it's just a fantastic putter. You don't usually get putters like this that have that level of torque resistance and overstability without being as overstable as like a zone type disc. Like you still get nice glide out of these. Just fantastic. I love the ability to throw the flex lines. Just an all around, you know, there's a reason why it's extremely popular. Next we have the Proxy. Now the Proxy is my favorite disc that we're talking about today, which is crazy because I just started throwing it like a few weeks ago when I did my review on it. Go check out my review of the Proxy if you haven't yet, but just a super neutral flight. You can see that first one I threw kind of high, but you can see that illustrated that it doesn't have a lot of fade. And I love that it's extremely torque resistant without that fade. So I can throw it hard and flat. Give us a little turn, a little bit of fade, but just a really straight neutral flight. Hit it on that hyzer, pops up to flat, fades, just all around. It's just a line holder. Just absolutely fantastic. My very wet self is gonna throw the Anheuser here. Just holds that Anheuser angle the whole way. Doesn't come out until the very end. Finally, we have the stabilizer. Now this is very much the black sheep of all the putters that we're talking about today because it's not very putter-like. Definitely not like a traditional putter at least. This is that tempo entropy zone type disc. Even though it's the 3-speed versus the 4-speed, this could very easily slot in with the rest of those. And that it's extremely torque resistant, extremely overstable. Like, you know, this hyzer doesn't get anywhere close to the basket. It has a very low glide. I think a 3.5 glide, a little deceiving when you compare it to the rest of those like 3-speeds we're looking at. This does not have more glide than those. This is a low glide overstable disc, but because of that, it has a lot of utility. It's a fantastic wind fighter. It's not one that I'm bagging currently, but it's one I'll be considering for the future because even though it's not like a traditional putter like a lot of the rest of these, it is a really nice disc. All right, that does it for the field testing with the discs, but I have this table here, and this kind of is my personal ranking of all the different stabilities from the most understable to the most overstable. This is just for my testing, so it doesn't perfectly align with the numbers. And there's gonna be some variation based on plastic. You know, if you have a neutron Envy versus a proton Envy, you're gonna get slightly different results, but this is just all the discs that I tested, how I would rank them. And it's actually pretty like spot on for the numbers. Like I feel like the numbers are surprisingly accurate. You have the spin way down is the most understable. The spin's the only truly understable mold here. There are other molds that if you beat in a bunch will become understable, but the spin is that one understable disc out of the box. And then we get in the neutral category. There's a bunch of just like neutral flying putters in the MVP lineup, which is great because you can kind of, you know, go through and you pick which one you like the most. It gives you a lot of options to choose from. My favorites in this are probably the Ohm, the Pixel, the Proxy. Those are the ones that I go to the most, just in the rounds that I play or that I plan to with the Ohm in the future. But then there's a few in that kind of like in-between category where it's not truly overstable, but it's not neutral either, where they have some bite at the end still. The Ion, the Atom, the Nomad, you know, it's, again, by the numbers, that's pretty much what you'd expect. Though the Atom, I'd say, is more overstable than I expected by just a little bit. In the truly overstable category, you have the Envy and the Stabilizer. That Stabilizer just so beefy. So if this helps you pick out what disc you're gonna get next, it might be good to pause this video, maybe take a screenshot of this table I got here. Otherwise, we're gonna move on to the hand feel. But before we do that, why don't you go check out this video's sponsor, that's Grow and Throw. Grow and Throw is a retailer here in Columbia, Missouri with a bunch of MVP Axiom discs. So if you wanna pick up one of these putters, why don't you go on down there. You can also find them online at growandthrow.shop, so check them out. Next, we're gonna talk about the hand feel. And to do this, I measured the height and the rim width using some electronic calipers. I really like using calipers because the PGA specs pages for these discs aren't always super accurate. I just did all the measurements myself just so I know exactly where they all stand in relation to one another. So this is another table that you might want to pause here or take a screenshot of, but I categorize these into shallow, medium, somewhat deep, and deep dish, that Chicago style putter. But that's just kind of, you know, the categories aren't really based on the numbers perfectly. It's just kind of how I feel about them, whether it's shallow or deep. And the height of the disc is pretty much what you'd expect, where we have like the Proxy, Atom, and Envy type discs on the shallower side. You have the Anode, the Ion, the Spin type discs on the deeper side. Pixel's pretty deep. It's nice because it's a pretty wide range. And this is in millimeters. I know the PGA specs page is in centimeters, but of course, millimeters or centimeters, it just move the decimal over, so from 19.7 it'd be 1.97 centimeters. Big variation there, great to have in your lineup, so you know, get on them. If you have any other questions about the hand feel or things of that nature, feel free to drop it down below in the comments. I'll try to get back to you and answer all the questions you have about hand feel or flight or, you know, whatever else you got. Feel free to let me know. And now I have my personal ranking of the discs, and guys, this is completely subjective. This is just what I enjoy throwing and what I would bag. So don't take any of these personally. Down at the bottom, we got the Nomad, Anode, and Ion. The Nomad is kind of a weird one for me, where it's so similar to the Atom, but it's a little bit deeper. The bead is bigger. So to me, it's almost like just a more uncomfortable Atom. Just not really my cup of tea. I feel like it's just like completely overlapped by that other disc in the lineup. Then the Anode and the Ion, again, these are just two of like their deepest putters. They're great for putting. I just don't like throwing that style of disc. And in the would consider category, these are discs that I would think about bagging, but they're not in my bag. And that is the Pilot, the Glitch, the Atom, and the Stabilizer. And in this category, the Pilot and the Atom, just too much overlap with what I'm already bagging between the Proxy and the Envy. Glitch is great, but already bagging the pitch. Stabilizer is kind of a weird situation where that one I might consider in the future, but I'm already bagging the Tempo. And again, those ones kind of in that same slot for me. In the Heck Yeah category, these are just I actually really like throwing quite a bit, and that's the Pixel, the Pitch, and the Watt. Of course, I bag the Pixel and the Pitch. The Watt would be making the bag if not for the Ohm. And in the Love It category, these are discs that are 100% in my bag. That's the Envy, the Spin, the Ohm, and at number 1 is the Proxy. The Envy, one of the best overstable throwing putters ever made. The Spin, just that effortless turn out of the box is great. The Ohm, dead straight, tons of glide, fantastic. And the Proxy is just that torque resistant all-around line holder, line shaper. I've just been throwing the Proxy so much lately. What a fantastic disc. So again, let me know what your ranking is down below. And that does it for the MVP putters. I plan on doing like singular reviews for the ones I really like in the future, but if there's any ones that you specifically want to see a full-length video on, let me know down in the comments. Go like and subscribe if you haven't already. That means a lot to me. Also, go check out this video's sponsor, Grow and Throw at growandthrow.shop. And as always, I'll see you guys next time.